Support for today's episode of This Is Only a Test comes from Squarespace. Whether you need a portfolio to showcase your work, a store to sell your products or services, or a blog to share your ideas, Squarespace gives you everything you need to make your next move into a reality, including a free domain. Not to mention, with Squarespace's beautifully designed templates and customizable features, creating a beautiful website is a simple and intuitive process. Simply add and arrange your content with a click of a mouse. Start your free trial today at squarespace.com and enter the offer code TEST, that's T-E-S-T, to get 10% off your first purchase. Now on with the show.
Hey, let's start the show.
For Thursday, April 6th, 2017, welcome to This Is Only a Test, the official podcast of Tested.com. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the reconstituted version of This Is Only a Test with all our regular hosts back on board. We've had multiple weeks of guest appearances, but I'm Norm, and I am joined by Jeremy Williams.
Greetings, salutations.
And Kishore Hari, back from 2 weeks off.
Hello.
How is everyone doing today?
You're understated today. You sound a little quiet, little lower energy.
I beg to disagree.
Are you a little sick by any chance?
You'll never hear it on the podcast. It will never show up.
Norm never gets sick.
Mind over matter.
Yeah, that's right. Robots don't get sick. I'm just simply exercising some imitation routines, protocols, to just run diagnostics, make sure all my simulation features are running up to snuff.
It's good to see you, Kishore.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's good to be back. I have some reactions. I actually listened to the past episode.
That's
Who listens
crazy.
to this podcast?
I was up in Oregon, and we went on a big road trip and went camping. And on the way back, I'm like, I need something to listen to for a few hours for the long drive.
Which one was that? The Will or the Patrick?
I listened to both. I listened to the 2-hour walkthrough of the entire Zelda game.
It was not a walkthrough. It was a spoiler-free discussion, an expression of enthusiasm. Did it make you want to play the game?
No, not at all.
Really?
It did the opposite. I was like, just hearing Will's obsession with capturing every shrine. Is that what the term is?
Yeah, that's the term.
Actually put me off a little bit.
Yeah, no accounting for taste.
And Gary's wife has now completed all 120 shrines. It's more than 100, the 100
gosh.
I thought.
Wow.
Yeah, that's dedication.
I guess he's been parenting the last couple of weeks. I have one other thought about last week's episode. Norm, you can't get a projector for how you watch TV.
I know. That's the question I had for Patrick. Like, I watch TV. It's on all the time. Not all the time, but it is a background thing in the house. It's like if you go to a bar and they have a projector and the TV setup, the projector never looks that great.
No.
Like, I flip it on. I flip the TV. I change channels a lot. When I think of a projector setup, I think of it for film. For movies, you're going to turn it on for 3 hours to watch a film, and you're going to set up, dim the lights, but the TV is just kind of always on.
I wouldn't relegate it just to film. It's good for many things.
Yes,
but
Netflix and TV, yes.
The problem is the light, if you have the windows open during the day and trying to watch something, no projector is going to perform as well as a TV.
I actually don't think that's the issue. And let's be honest, Patrick's forgotten more about AV stuff than I'll ever know in my life. But the issue, I think, is like the screen coming down, the projector warming up. It's not the instant on way that Norm views TV, I think.
Exactly, yeah.
However,
the situation room.
Size matters when it comes to TV. And if you have a projector in your house and it's nighttime and you're enjoying that projector watching Rogue One or whatever
in
you have.
100 plus inches.
It's the best experience you can get at home.
With the right audio system.
So there's that.
Which is why I am entertaining the ridiculous notion of the dual screen setup in the living room, a large TV, and then the projector that goes over it for movies. It's completely impractical.
You only live once.
But I like just thinking about it.
Yeah.
It makes me happy just to imagine that setup. It's such a waste of money.
That's a divorce setup
No,
your-
not at all.
I think
Not nearly at all.
He might have buy-in on this one.
Yeah.
What?
I mean, the TV's dying. We love to watch our basketball
Wow.
games and our Netflix.
Wow. It's good to be back, though.
Yes. So tell us, you listened to this podcast while you were away. Where did you go and what did you do?
I went camping up in Oregon with the family. I have a 6-year-old, and we took a drive up the Oregon coast. And instead of camping, we did a little glamping. Oregon has a bunch of cabins and yurts.
Please
and
never
a lot
say
of,
that word again.
Oh, glamping? Oh, it's Glamp Time Central.
Is
here.
that a thing? You've heard of this?
It is a thing that people say. I have heard. The combination of glamorous and camping.
Oh.
There's lots of words that Will used to use that we eliminated, so I have to bring in some new lexicon.
I don't even think, right. So this was definitely not a Will word, but yeah, okay. This own it. Own it.
So there's cabins and these like yurts with like heaters and stuff. So it was definitely a little fancified for camping. But we stayed at all these amazing coastal parks. And then we went inland to one of my favorite places I've been in a long time, Silver Falls State Park, which is only about an hour and a half from Portland. But basically it has these massive waterfalls with trails that go in right behind the waterfalls, which is just awesome.
That sounds like you were playing Zelda.
That's
great.
Did you inhale
I
the breath
didn't
of the wild?
jump off the cliff with my
Hang glider?
with a hang glider.
Was there cooking? Did you mix
There
the
was
mushrooms and the
cooking.
fish?
There was cooking.
Okay.
We stopped at. Oh, what I also loved is we stopped at all of these independent board game stores up and down the coast because my kid's super into board games right now. So we went to a really great one in Willits, California, which is like population maybe like 5,000 people or something. But they had a great game store, and that was fun. But my favorite thing is Oregon has sand dunes in the middle of their coastline, and we went on some dune buggies on the coast.
Cool.
Which is just amazing. A view of the ocean as you're sort of ripping by on the sand in these buggies.
You got to drive?
No, we did a tour because with my kid and my driving skill seemed to make the most sense.
All right.
But there was a bunch of ATVs out there and stuff. It was awesome. It's so rejuvenating. Look at me, healthy living now.
What?
I'm a changed man.
Did you
no,
get-
no, I'm kidding. Come on,
Where's
get
the
that
caffeine?
shit out of here. But it's good to be back. How
Never-
are
never
things been
change.
here? There's some. This last week was a pivotal week in your theater going experiences. I've heard.
Yes. Yeah. So you've heard that. Everyone who listens to Still Entitled, you know this. I watched Hamilton last week. So did Jeremy. We talked very briefly about it on last week's podcast. In between your watching it and my watching it.
Yeah, there was only a 24-hour period.
That's right. And I gotta say, it lived up to every expectation.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great because I heard Jeremy say he was the only real nitpick was the chorus,
The
right?
ensemble, yeah.
The ensemble.
And I didn't feel that way. I thought the ensemble was strong. The blocking,
They
the
heard your feedback,
choreography. It was stronger for the night after. Sorry, Jeremy. They were so good that second night. My only complaint were maybe I had a person behind me that was didn't sing along, but they were whispering between some of the songs. And
You're not getting in my shot. Like that?
I think it's okay to mouth along, but not sing along. It's not a sing along. Not yet.
The crowd was excited?
The crowd was super into it.
Isn't that great?
It's the energy was definitely there. Yeah.
I read that some people I checked out the Hamilton Reddit, and I guess there's been a problem with people dancing in the audience, and so people
In the aisles?
no,
Or just, like,
just
standing
in
up?
their seat, not standing and dancing, but
just like this shoulder
Yeah,
movement?
just like dancing in your
Come
seat.
on, you can't get bothered by that.
That's great.
People get bothered by it.
Oh,
Like they reach
come
up and they ask
on.
them to stop.
Stop moving.
That's if you go to the theater.
I know this
You went
is
to the
this
theater.
Is, exactly.
You're
This is just a
fine.
show. It's a show. It's a pop culture phenomenon. Like don't be stuck up and go to this. I wasn't stuck about people like whispering is a separate thing because then you're audibly like you're supposed to. I'm
I
trying
hate
to listen.
it. I
Yeah.
can't stand it.
But like people bobbing their head and like mouthing along, that's totally cool.
I'm fine with that too.
Yeah.
I just wanted, I noticed that some people weren't. My wife blew my mind this morning when at breakfast we were playing King George's song.
Yes.
And
Part 1, Part 2, or Part 3?
part one,
Okay.
you'll be back. And she said that's the guy who's singing on the soundtrack.
Yeah.
Played Kristoff in Frozen.
Yes.
I had no idea.
I forget his name. Big actor. He left. He was one of the first people who left the production because he's a working actor, and he was one of the big names they had gotten for the original production.
That's really cool.
I love that the King George, the presentation of King George in the show.
Well, I'm not a huge Hamilton fan. I can relate to the buzz and energy of one of those huge moments when everyone is so bought in a live audience.
Yeah.
What was it like just like walking up and seeing the line and in the lobby and all that stuff?
I mean, it's one of those things where you realize everyone loves it. Everyone who's there has, one, invested money into this. It's not a cheap show to go to. And two, they all had their personal journeys. It means something different to everyone. Everyone has their different sense memories. So, like, you have this shared bond with the people who are going, but it's not, sometimes it's very personal. It's like, it for you, Jeremy, I imagine you had been listening for a year. You had your own sense memories of it. And, you know, in some regards, you want to feed off the energy of the people, but you also want to own it for yourself. Like, it's something that your experience is always going to be yours. And you don't necessarily want that to bleed into other people's experiences or have their enjoyment of it bleed into yours, except for the energy. I don't know, that's how I felt about it.
How long until Sing-Along Hamilton at the Castro Theater?
I think they got to make a movie first.
They don't need to make a movie. They'll just have people wander up there and act it out.
There are going to be some fees needed for that, for licensing fees. I don't know how theater
Parody
exactly works.
Free
Yeah, I guess so.
Parody. It's cool.
Yeah. It's the best thing, and I've said it on Still Untitled, it's encouraged people in San Francisco, I hope, to enjoy more of the arts, more stage performances, whether it's plays or musical theater. I've already bought into next year's season pass for the SHN San Francisco.
There you go.
And so they've found a lifetime follower.
They have succeeded.
Yes, exactly. And the Book of Mormon's coming back next year.
I saw that the first time around.
Oh,
That's
you did?
good. I saw it in New York. It's awesome.
Yeah. All right. Let's get into our first segment.
That music is better live than in the car.
Yeah. So something that is a big event coming up that we've been waiting for, fans of Marvel Comics and the Marvel TV shows, we finally have a release date for The Defenders.
Yeah, we got a little teaser bit.
We did. It was a very short, like 15-second video clip showing the 4 Defenders, Luke Cage, Jessica Jones, Daredevil, and Iron Fist in an elevator, black and white security cam footage. If you look at the detail, they fed in some information, like a website, along with the release date, April 18th, or August 18th.
The name of a bank that they were visiting.
Oh, yeah, you paid attention to scrutinize the footage. But it was just, that's all it was, a teaser. This miniseries is coming up. I guess, I don't know if you can even call it a miniseries. It is basically a series.
Is it not 13 episodes?
I don't think it's that. I guess, I think it's shorter.
Are you guys more excited about this than any of the one-offs?
I think I'm less excited after watching Iron Fist.
And that's the thing I want to talk about. Like, they were on such a roll with the different styles. It was going to be the Avengers of TV, but the Avengers really only worked because all the films leading up to it had an underlying narrative and also were all great. Here, it kind of, the last one, the most anticipated one, landed on a dud critically. I think Netflix.
I don't know if it was the most anticipated one. I think he's the least known. Well, maybe Jessica Jones as well, at least.
But it had a lot to live up to because the others have been so successful.
Yes.
I mean, the real disappointment is that it's a kung fu show that had bad action scenes.
Right. There were interviews that came out after where the actors talked about getting the choreography the day of shooting.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's terrible.
Where with Daredevil, you can always tell what story the studio wants to push out. With Daredevil, they talked about how extensively they choreographed and practiced those amazing fight scenes, especially the tracking shot fight scenes, that long hallway shot. Here, if you have some of the interviews saying the excuses being that they got the choreography, they trained and they learned the basics, but the choreography coming the day of or just several days before filming, that's not very encouraging.
There was something iconic in each of the first 3, and we didn't get that in the fourth.
It looked like an ABC TV show. It looked like network television.
So okay, but you're still combining three aspects that you like a lot for the other three guys.
I hope so. Yes.
Right. So
Yeah.
why is this not an exciting thing?
It
for
is.
you?
No, it
No,
totally
it is, but
Okay.
it's just dulled now.
I see.
And again, the villain makes the hero, and so the villain for this show, which is still kind of an unknown, I have some
Sigourney
thoughts.
Weaver.
Well, but we don't know what character
Right.
really. We don't really know the bad. And in all of these shows, there's been a hidden bad beyond the one they've released as sort of the front character. So I think that's the real driving question. We do know they're not going to interact with the larger MCU.
Yeah,
like there were some hopes they were going to show up in the Infinity War movie. Not gonna happen.
No. I mean, that's all business. It's all, even though it's under the same family company, the parent company. There's a fine line between what even names they can use. They can allude to things, and they're very coy about it. It's been the same with even the ABC show with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. When you have the same character move between or originated from the movies, be the star of the show, and have guest appearances from some of those cast members, there's no
I get
crossover.
It. When the universe is under threat by the greatest villain, we still have to focus on Hell's Kitchen first and foremost.
Yeah. Yes. Those 10 blocks.
The most exciting pop culture news that came out this week, and I think Norm is probably going to explode when this hits the screen,
Well,
is the
if it's good.
announcement of Invincible.
Oh my goodness.
Coming
Yes.
this year.
Whoa! What's this?
Oh, so Robert Kirkman, the writer of The Walking Dead, he has a few long-running series. He's one of those, like Brian Michael Bendis, writer who just commits to writing serialized stories, not these 12-issue miniseries, and just building these characters that you honestly grow up with. In the same way that kids in the 80s and 70s grew up with Spider-Man and saw Peter Parker grow up, and there's some continuity. And this is a creator-owned series. So in addition to Walking Dead, his other very popular series is called Invincible. And the premise of Invincible, which I believe was released in early 2002, 3-ish, is that it's a kid named Mark Grayson, and he's the son of Omni-Man, the world's their version of Superman. So what if Superman had a family, married, and had a kid, a teenage son, and the teenage son started getting superpowers around teenage years, and then wanted to become a superhero of his own. Very fun premise.
Yeah, it sounds very sweet on the surface.
And it's a lot of opportunities, like, what it means for a kid in a world where there are other superheroes, which are, some of them are loosely parodies and satirical versions of your Marvel superheroes, your DC superheroes. There's a Batman-like character, there's a Martian-like character. But what it means for a kid to, have a father be essentially Superman, and then have to live up to that, go on your first team up, meet other superheroes, apply to be in the Young Justice, their version of the Justice League, and then it gets real dark.
Yeah, if your series creator created The Walking Dead, things take a dark turn.
Yep.
Quick.
Yeah. Very, very.
And it's really interesting. It's like there's alien forces, there's threats, there's interpersonal crisis. I think Mark goes through a lot of growing.
And I think that's the hallmark
book. Yeah.
of all of Robert Kirkman's stuff, which is that, the premise is fantastical and hooks you immediately, but it's really about how he writes these characters as believable, real people from his mind, that now we're over 120 issues into the series, and following this character for 10 years, you've seen real growth, and the art is fantastic. The art is Robert Otley is amazing artist.
Walking Dead, I could always see translated to TV. I think the idea of zombie. This one is much harder because there are superpowers involved. There's super strength. There's these elements. I think they can get the human part right.
Are you worried about budgetary constraints?
It's a
Just
movie.
how it looks.
It's a movie adaptation, which is my first fear. It's not a TV show.
Oh, it's
a
not a
film.
TV show?
It's for
It's a
Universal.
film?
And I don't think
How are
they're
they
going
to do that?
They can't. They can't pack 120 issues of story, of the things, all the ups and downs, the crazy revelations, into a 2-hour movie.
Yeah, so no Angstrom. Then you think it'll just be?
Oh yeah,
Nolan.
no. It'll just be the family, the interpersonal relation,
No,
and that's a good hook.
It's going to be a setup for sequels. The studios aren't buying single movies anymore.
That they want to buy 14 films.
Yeah.
Michael Bay says he has 14 Transformer films written and planned out. not scripted, but storied out.
I don't think they ever get a
new
script. I've seen
Transformer
those.
films.
Why stop there? 14. What a weird number.
Pretty arbitrary. I mean, they said when the Power Rangers movie came out, Saban said they had 6. They was part of a 6-movie series they had mapped out.
That makes sense.
And they've been doing Power Rangers for 10 years, 20 years now, as well. So there's enough story to pull from to make Invincible, if it's successful, a trilogy of which would be great. I mean, anytime you have a successful trilogy, Hollywood's clamoring for that
There's
stuff.
proper source material for that.
But it's tough because the first movie needs to succeed, and I think moviegoers. It's no surprise that we hate watching origin stories that all they do is lay the foundation for future films.
I like origin stories.
But then there's no. I like movies that are self-contained too. Let it be self-contained. But so the news is that this story is this film Invincible is going to be written by Seth Rogen.
Yeah,
and
how do you
Evan
feel
Goldberg.
about this tag? From the makers of Sausage Party comes Invincible.
And The Interview and Superbad. I don't know. I don't think humor is a big part.
No,
I
it's
think
not.
It's of the sort. There are comical moments and funny moments, but it's an all-out superhero brawl. I mean, actually, the closest thing to Invincible I can think of in terms of where the story goes is Dragon Ball. It is a very Dragon Ball-like story. Without getting into spoilers, do you want to know the spoiler in this? The big. It happens in like the first 4 episodes.
Sure.
People, I'm going to sneeze for a second, but people mute your podcast audio for my impending sneeze and for 30 seconds of spoilers about Invincible.
Oh, wait, I'll just tell the spoiler while you sneeze because you're never sick. The dad's not good.
Oh, he's a supervillain?
The big twist in the first 4 episodes,
man.
the premise between the show is that the dad is actually an alien and sent by a race of conquering aliens to infiltrate humanity, become a hero, gain their trust, and then prepare the world to be conquered.
I guarantee that's given away in the trailer because that is a hook.
Yeah,
Well,
I agree. Like, what if Superman?
If Zack Snyder got in control of that trailer, it would be.
But that's just the very, very basic premise.
Yeah,
it goes
I mean,
way
it doesn't
deeper than
go. That doesn't really reveal that much.
All right, the sneeze is done, and also the spoilers are done.
Hey, there's other big announcements this week. Rogue One hit Blu-ray. Jeremy got one of a kind edition too.
Oh my god, yeah.
Well, that's so weird.
I know that. Where did you find the Gary Whitta edition of the Blu-ray?
I think they're all supposed to come with it, and mine just didn't come with that card.
Oh.
But if you buy the Blu-ray from Target, you can get the one with interchangeable covers.
Mm-hmm.
All the cast
All the
members
cast
are on there.
members, yeah.
Where's the Gary Whitta one? So I made one, shared it on Twitter. You can grab it, print it yourself. Looks fantastic.
You gonna release that on Thingiverse or something?
I released it on Twitter.
And it's Gary wearing his X-wing pilot helmet.
Yeah, Red Squadron.
Perfectly. Did you get high enough resolution image to print out and put on that card?
Gary shared a high enough res version.
Oh,
Yep. If you
very
Google
good.
Gary Whitta, it's like one of the first images that comes up.
He's been doing a bunch of interviews now because we talked about Rogue One being released and how it was funky that you could do digital download, you could rent it, but you could not buy a Blu-ray. And now the Blu-ray is out several weeks after the digital version.
They've been doing that.
Is out. But Gary's been doing follow-up interviews, and there was a story I read on IO9 where he talked about how he got the gig for Rogue One. I don't think he's talked about that publicly. Like, people talk about Gary, very competent screenwriter, obviously. He wrote After Earth, wrote Book of Eli, a lot of writing credits to his name. But how did someone that's relatively unknown get such a prestigious writing gig?
Disney listens to this podcast and was like, "Wow, that
that's
guy's
right.
a star."
That's right. They heard his rant. They heard the Jedi Training Academy. This guy understands He understands the dark side of Star Wars. Yeah, and said, "Find me his agent." No, it was simply a matter of business, right? Like, Gary had his agent reach out and put his hat in the ring. I'm sure they took meetings with a bunch of writers, and what he pitched apparently resonated. And the thing he specifically mentioned is that in their pitch meeting, he talked to John Knoll, the guy who came up with the story, also a story credit on Rogue One.
An old ILM guy, right?
Yes, he's a head of ILM, and Gary said that when he read the story, the treatment for what Rogue One would eventually be, he said it reminded him of Zero Dark 30, but set in the Star Wars universe. And apparently that really resonated with John Knoll. And he said in a follow-up presentation, a lot of the imagery that John Knoll had used in his own pitch meeting was pulled from Zero Dark 30. And
Wow.
the movie didn't end up being exactly that, but I think that type of
You can see the elements of
war,
that. Yeah.
special ops, gritty atmosphere was what they were going for initially. And the movie turned out great, but that's how he got his foot in the door and contributed to the story.
That's awesome. Have you watched it with BB-8 yet?
No, how does that work? So if you have is it the Sphero BB-8?
It is the Sphero BB-8.
How does that work? How does BB-8 watch it with you?
I haven't tried it yet, but apparently you can download an update via the software for BB-8. Maybe it does a firmware update on Sphero, and it watches along and reacts. I guess it.
So
Does it just react by the sound?
yeah,
right?
so Sphero has a microphone built in. Actually, the microphone is in your phone. Sphero tethers to your phone, and the audio, BB-8's audio, is on your phone as well. It's a feature they actually released with The Force Awakens, BB-8, the watch along thing, like watch with me.
Okay.
But it uses basically Shazam-like technology where you can will hear the parts of the movie. So you can start the film at any point. You can jump around, and your phone has to be plugged in. It will recognize where it is, and then they've scripted along sounds and animations for the toy robot while sitting in its dock to look left and right, to turn to you, to make exciting sounds, and also on the screen to pop up information about some of the characters.
I did the Force Awakens watch along with it. I was really hoping he would stick his thumb out with a little lighter. Didn't happen.
Like a
Not
bonus
part
feature?
of the firmware update,
No,
apparently.
that wasn't there.
No.
Did you really watch it, The Force Awakens with BB-8?
Yeah, I did.
And what is it entertaining? Is it a disappointment?
For a couple minutes.
Yeah,
I
not
mean,
for 2 hours.
After a little bit, you're like, hey, I'm watching a movie, and like this thing goes beep boop boop every few minutes.
Does it seem appropriate? I mean, is it well
yeah,
timed?
it's not distracting. It's
Okay.
It's like he's not taking away from the the crucial scenes. And
Yeah.
I mean, kids must love it. It's imbuing so much
Yeah.
additional life. And the thing
Yeah.
is, like the BB-8, the Sphero people can add all sorts of sounds. It doesn't have to just be your standard roster of BB-8 sounds.
Yeah.
The with a new library of audio effects, you can be very expressive with just the turning of the head. I would be curious of how they actually scripted that out, like how excited they want to be. What was the range of excitement and curiosity? Because like you can imagine a very animated little tiny droid watching along with you.
Yeah, it's called Mystery Science Theater. But the one thing to do, Jeremy, do this now before some marketing person starts calling it fourth dimensional viewing and then ruins it, because there's going to be buzzwords attached to this.
Okay.
Soon. You got to do it soon.
Okay.
Norm, you're just back from LA.
Yeah, this is a month of conventions. I'm in Los Angeles, I think 3, maybe 4 times this month. And speaking of conventions, we're not going to be at Star Wars Celebration. If people are going to Star Wars Celebration, it's in Orlando, Florida. I've been to Orlando like twice this year already. I can't believe it. If you're going to be in Florida for a celebration, you may want to apply for the lottery for the exclusive Star Wars Lego set.
Oh.
It is by lottery only going to be offered at Celebration, and it is a tiny little diorama, 220 pieces of Luke and Han in stormtrooper outfits in the detention cells.
So they
It
only
looks
have like
great.
100 or so? Why does it have to be a lottery?
Because there was
There's just a few hundred of them.
yeah, or there'll be. I'm sure there'll be a couple thousand of them,
Yeah,
but there
there's
are
tens
so
of
many.
thousands.
Exactly,
Yeah.
there are tens of thousands of people at Celebration.
Wow.
But this past weekend, I was at WonderCon. I'm going to Monsterpalooza this coming weekend. There'll be a RPF event the following weekend. But WonderCon was great. It was. I know there have been other conventions, like some people have been to half a dozen conventions this year already, but WonderCon was my big first pop culture convention of the year, and I sure felt it in my feet afterward.
Really? You didn't have your sea legs? Your con
not
legs?
yet. Not yet. No, I'm going to build that up for Comic-Con and Dragon Con.
Well, I think Silicon Valley Comic-Con is going to be pretty big for Tested this year. So,
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's local.
That's local, and like the whole team's going, like Simone and Adam. You were there just with Frank. Did you mostly do stuff on the floor?
We mostly did stuff on the floor. We did a little walk around, did a couple interviews. The thing I was really excited about was chatting with another Frank Winsper from Mobius Models. They're a model making company. that makes model kits, and they have a license to do 2001 Space Odyssey
fun.
model kits. So they have a Discovery 1 model kit, 40 inches long, the spaceship that's coming out, I think, at the end of this year. They had a prototype there. It's all CAD designed, so they're not molding and casting, they're injection molded styrene kits, but it's all originally just done on the computer and 3D printed and prototyped. So it was really cool to talk to them about that development process. And then, saw a bunch of cosplayers, met up with the BB-8 Builders group, our buddies Mike Senna and Mike McMaster, who we've featured before, great droid builders. They brought their mouse droids. This would be a fun project to do, Jeremy.
Yeah, well, they just started selling that at the Disney parks too. I'm just saying, if you want one on the cheap, you can get one at Disneyland.
You can get one at the cheap at Disneyland, or we can build one. You can get a run of the chassis, of the vacuum form exterior. You can 3D print. There are even files for the Greeblies, so you don't have to. It's like one whole piece that you can just put on.
Sounds like a fun build.
Easy.
Somebody needs to take that from bits to atoms.
How far along are the BB-8 droids at this point? Because last I saw, I think it was when you guys checked in with them, they had abandoned the rolling and they just went for head moving.
Well, there's no they anymore because the group is so big. The thing that we learned is that everyone has a different approach to building a BB-8. And so when you're talking about Mike Senna's specific one, he built two. He built one that does roll and then one that's more of a display model.
But he wasn't real happy with the rolling.
No, the rolling motion is tough to get right, especially with the momentum people are experimenting with gyros, weighted systems. So he built a more display model. It doesn't roll. Only the head does its movement. It's a little more animated, perfect for conventions. That hasn't been updated much, but I did chat with a guy who had a completely different system, who does want a roll and a head movement, and built an internal track system that the head glides along. Still weighted magnets, but basically he described it as being two robots. He built a head robot and a body robot. And the big takeaway is that because everyone is trying their own method, it's not about finding what's like the canonical fan system. There is no canonical fan system. People have engineered a system in their head, and all they want to do is to get to the end of their journey. And that's going to be like their version of BB-8. Right. And yes, it may not work as perfect as the Lucasfilm one or the one on stage or the other person. That's not the point. The point is you engineered a solution. Right. And if you stuck along from what you had in your head, you can modify it, but came to finish your BB-8 your way, then that's the
sweet romantic way of looking at it. I mean, I appreciate that. I'm on my journey all the time trying to build stuff, and I like to reinvent the wheel because it's fulfilling. But at the same time, the BB-8 mechanism is so elusive. Like how Lucas pulled that off, then I'm wondering, has somebody nailed it just as well yet?
Well, there's no how Lucas pulled it off because the way they pulled it off on stage is different from the way they filmed it.
Yeah, but I'm talking about the one on stage.
The one on stage. And the one on stage was honestly not it was going to fall apart at any moment. Like, it was not perfect by any means. Yeah. Like, the fan-made ones need to be more rugged. Especially if you imagine your head that you want it to actually roll around and not just move 15 feet onto the stage, do an animation, and come back. Like, it's... I think the fans have far surpassed the versatility of the official ones.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. I've always wondered if anyone's going to ever be able to make one that can go on sand, like in the film, because the physics say you cannot do that.
That sounds hard.
But it'll be interesting. A couple quick hitters before we move on to tech news. Chris Hardwick keeps stealing jobs that I've always wanted in my life. He's getting a new science show on NBC.
That's right, a network show.
Which is great.
NBC ordered 6 episodes of The Awesome Show, which I think is
He's not great on titles, but in terms of content, he's there.
Right. I don't know what this show means.
Apparently, he's going to interview like technologists, like scientists, like all bleeding edge type individuals. I think in the vein of, I don't know if you ever watched his old show called Wired Science that was on PBS. Right. So I get the sense that's like kind of an updated version of that.
Like putting him in the field documentary series.
Yeah. Okay. Visiting, interviewing people. Like Chris Hardwick's great at interviewing people. I know there's a lot of like Hardwick haters out there, but he's incredible. I don't know how he does this with so many shows. He has Plinko show now. He has an internet show. He has a talk show. Right. And now he has a science show. He's all the shows.
Maybe there's more than one. Now, we were recording this on April 5th, and 5 days ago, we had the annual deluge of April Fool's news stories.
Oh my goodness.
You guys want to talk about this for a second?
Sure.
I
hate April Fools.
I'm in the same camp. Like, I wake up that morning and I forget, and then I see these exciting stories, and I get fooled a couple times, and then I just hate the rest of the day.
I was ready to vote for George Takei.
That was the one I actually got fooled by just for a moment. I'm like, oh, yeah. Maybe it was. There were 2 April Fool's stories or things that happened that I enjoyed. I genuinely enjoyed this year. One was the non-joke of Adult Swim, Cartoon Network, Justin Roiland, Dan Harmon releasing the first episode of season 3 of Rick and Morty.
Which I think the reaction was is this real? It's April 1st. Why are they doing this?
And then when you read the comments and like people tweeting about it and posting about it on Facebook, I was still skeptical for longer than I should have been. But what they did was they streamed for hours and broadcast on TV the first episode just on loop. And it was a great episode. I really, really enjoyed it. And it was a really pleasant surprise for that to pop up on April 1st. The other thing, speaking of Shazam, callback from earlier, was I believe a College Humor piece about that they did a video with Sinbad about the found footage for the movie that never existed, Shazam. So do you know about this, Jeremy?
Negative.
Do you know about the Mandela effect?
Oh wait, no.
There is a cultural and maybe psychological phenomenon where people remember things in that didn't exist, or remember a certain thing differently. And when lots of people remember the same thing differently, they believe it's real. That's not about fake news, but it's like purely a psychological thing. So, for example, a simple example is when you think in your head, think of the cereal box Fruit Loops.
No. I saw your tweet.
Right?
Yes, that blew my mind. By the way,
didn't it blow your mind?
Yes.
When you imagine in your head the box of Fruit Loops and you see the letters spelled out, how do you spell it in your head? How does it pop up?
Fruit.
Right?
Yeah.
That's the box of Fruit Loops. That box does not exist.
F you. I'm just getting this now.
Does not exist. When you go to the supermarket, and as long as Fruit Loops have been available, in all the commercials and all the boxes, it's been spelled F-R-O-O-T, Fruit Loops. And you're like, did I just wake up in a parallel universe?
Right.
Because in my head, it's always been Fruit Loops. So that's the Mandela effect. And I think it originated with the idea of people believing they saw a newspaper that said Nelson Mandela died. But there are these cultural things. There's a great, I think, a BuzzFeed list of all these that have popped up that just blow your mind. For example, Darth Vader never says, "Luke, I am your father."
Oh, God damn it.
Hear in your head. Listen, you can hear him saying it. "Luke, I am your father." He says, "No, I am your father. I am your father."
Right.
In the Star Trek original series, never have you ever seen Kirk say, "Scott, beam me up, Scotty"?
That's interesting. Yeah,
This is so much worse than spoilers.
Like Bart Simpson never says "have a cow, man," right? Until it became a thing, and then he said it.
Yeah. But people manifest these things as real because of the way they're propagated. A lot of quotes from films never actually pop up the way you think.
Yeah.
Like if you think of the TV show Sex and the City, a lot of people think it's called Sex in the City. And they see the logo, they can visualize, they manifest that. So the point is that for the longest time, there were a group of people online, and there were communities about this, some of them on Reddit, who believed that there was a 90s film starring Sinbad, the comedian, where he was a genie called Shazam.
You mean the one that starred Shaq?
Well, no, everyone knows about Shaq and Kazam.
Oh.
But people believe they swore they could remember seeing it, seeing the film, watching it on TV, having the VHS, an imaginary film starring Sinbad as a genie called Shazam. Never existed.
Okay.
It never ever existed. And going back to people have tried to find the origins of why this could have worked, like try to analyze it. Well, is it because Sinbad the comedian, Sinbad evokes, Sinbad in the seven seas, the sailor, and they wore Mediterranean clothes that were like that of a genie, or because Shazam sounds like Kazam, and like what could it be? Like, and Sinbad made a lot of these kid-friendly movies where that was very much like Kazam back in the 90s. Like
any one of those is a good reason why one person might make a mistake, but why would so many people share the same misconception?
And I think last year they found some footage where Sinbad hosted a TV marathon of movies. And he was like the interstitial host between those movies, and he was wearing a genie-like outfit. And so that could have been the reason that people made that connection and manifested this in their head. But for April Fool's, College Humor produced a short film where it looked like VHS. It looked so good. It was like VHS found footage from the movie Shazam.
That's good.
Starring Sinbad. They got Sinbad to star in it. And so I thought it was a really fun. It wasn't meant to fool anyone, but it was a really good acknowledgement and a culmination of this Mandela phenomenon.
And it had Fruit Loops in it.
And it had it had like 8 different Mandela effect like things in it, like the Berenstain Bears, and
it's spelled FRUIT.
Exactly. They edited it in to call attention to those things. So I thought that was really
I'm gonna
charming.
have to go back and watch Empire and the original series now. Oh my god,
That's really clever.
That's amazing.
They do good work.
Yeah. Do you want me to list the other things that are gonna blow your mind?
Sure.
I don't know if I can handle it. It was actually upsetting when you started to list them out for me.
One at a time.
Okay. How about this? Visualize the Oscar Mayer logo, the Oscar Mayer Wiener logo.
Okay.
Sure.
How would you spell it?
OSCAR MEYER.
Yeah.
Oh, it's MAYER.
It's MAYER.
Damn it.
Mayor.
Oscar Mayer.
Okay.
Okay. How about this? This blew my mind. This Curious George. Visualize Curious George.
Yeah.
Describe him. He's a monkey, right?
He's a monkey.
Right. Describe him. He's
Like,
a monkey.
Monkey. Brown hair.
Yep.
White face.
Small.
Oh,
Does
you
he
want me to say he has a yellow hat?
No.
Oh.
Not that. Does Curious George have a tail?
Yes.
No, he doesn't. I know he doesn't.
What's wrong? Why doesn't he have a tail?
He never has a tail. People swear they've seen pictures of Curious George swinging on trees, meeting the man in the yellow hat. No, Curious George, the character, never has a tail.
All right.
Man, viewers are going to be really upset about this. Like, much more so than spoiler cast.
I don't know. Those two I don't have too much
right.
invested in.
Are you familiar with the fast food company Chick-fil-A?
Oh,
Yes.
sure.
Can you visualize their logo?
Sure.
Sure.
CHIKFLI, like apostrophe ET or something weird like that.
No, with hyphens.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
Kishore?
It doesn't spell chick with the way you spell chick. CHICK. No, it's just CHIK.
That's what I said.
No, it's CHICK.
It is? All right.
Oh, this is great. I'm blowing your mind. Okay, how about this? Visualize C-3PO.
Fine.
Oh God, you're gonna
What?
ruin another
What do
thing.
you-
Okay,
C-3PO, okay?
fine.
Yep.
See from all the films, visualize from head to toe, like basically his head, his arms, his chest,
Yep.
his legs. C-3PO, when did he get his silver leg?
A silver leg? What are you talking about? What do you mean?
One of his legs is silver at the end of the Return of the Jedi.
Oh, really?
When did he get his silver
because
leg?
he, after he gets destructed on Cloud City.
Wrong. He's had a silver leg the entire time since the very first time you've seen him.
You're going off the rails.
No way. No freaking way.
You gotta Google this.
No.
No.
Okay.
No.
One
No.
more.
No, I do not accept this.
Look, I don't know. These images must all be wrong. Oh, you're talking about this leg.
His leg.
Oh my God. I hate this.
Okay.
Okay, that's weird.
We'll do.
Oh, wait, one more.
right.
One more.
We'll do one more. that
Every
will-
time you say something, I go into a new alternate universe.
I know. Visualize the Kit Kat bar logo.
What? KIT-KAT.
Yeah.
There's never been a dash.
There's no.
Yeah, we keep on doing this
I
enough.
hate this game. This is weird.
This is so much worse than spoilers, right?
Yes.
Oh my! Wow.
We'll end it there. I'm sorry out there for everyone whose realities we've warped.
I'm going to basically in the show notes this week be like, do not listen to these minutes if you want your innocence retained.
Yeah.
This is great.
Well,
Happy April Fools, everyone.
Yeah. If we're moving on from April Fools, I wanted to first of all bring up Our Place because I don't know if it was an April Fool's joke, but it was amazing.
What are you talking
Are
about?
you guys familiar with this?
What is this?
You don't know about this. So Reddit, I don't know how it was announced, but it just came into existence. Reddit/r/place, right? Our Place. It was a giant canvas of what's the resolution? Probably like 2048 by 2048, something pretty big. That you could go into, you could zoom into anywhere on the canvas. You could add a pixel, 1 pixel every 5 minutes, and you had 16 colors to choose from. Gigantic canvas. It was available for 72 hours for anybody to pixel on every 5 minutes, and it was an amazing experiment.
So it was pixel art.
Unbelievable.
It was like e-boy style pixel art, but collaborative
And completely democratic. I mean, it was no organization whatsoever. It was, and so people would collaborate. They would go into subreddits and they would say, all right, guys, let's do this pixel art. Like take this piece of imagery that's like 64 by 32. And they would break it up into coordinates and they would say, everyone take a pixel. And they'd jump in and everyone would work together to get a stamp onto this map.
So groups worked and tried to own a portion.
They'd find a portion that was largely being unused.
Yeah.
Because people would fight for territory.
Now, there were no trolling, no trolls into...
There were trolls.
Oh, this is just like the button.
The biggest troll group of all was the Void. And the Void had no rules except they would go and they would pick a point and then they would work together to turn it black. And they would spread blackness throughout the painting. It looked like a virus spreading.
But in the final image, I don't see that virus
because
spreading.
Because the Void was not the most powerful group. So people would then fight back against the Void.
Oh, so you could it wasn't permanent. You could actually revert the pixel.
No, you had to paint over. So it's layer upon layer upon layer. So you're right. No, pixels weren't permanent.
Got it.
But you could change them, and that's how the Void would change it to black.
But you only got 1 pixel per user.
Per 5 minutes.
Oh, per 5 minutes.
So everyone had to wait 5 minutes between.
So there's an
entering a
evolution.
pixel.
How long did it take
It's
one?
a gorgeous evolution. In fact, there's a video on there of the 72-hour time lapse.
Oh, that's what I want to see because I'm curious. It probably didn't take long for every pixel, every space to get filled initially.
It took about 24 hours.
Okay.
Yeah, and at first it was just ugly. It was a big white and some ugly pixels on it. That the first image was dick butt, and then it evolved and the things got colored in.
The first image was dick butt. F you, internet.
Right, but
Come on.
These are all like hand done, and then people got organized and started sharing things. But then people tapped into the API and started using scripts to actually paint, and that's when it became less fun. Because actually, after the first 48 hours, the last 24 hours is pretty stagnant because all the scripts are sort of fighting to maintain their image.
Wow.
There, you got it.
Yeah, the time lapse is pretty amazing.
Yeah, and so I highly recommend checking it out, if not just to see the time lapse and see the final image and to see this kind of pop culture thing. It's the kind of thing that the internet is so wonderful at.
Oh, well, I'm surprised I didn't hear about
The
this.
Mona Lisa coming through is
Mona Lisa,
beautiful.
Van Gogh, and the whole thing is a 16-color fixed palette. So yeah,
Wow.
that was cool.
It's amazing.
And people are selling the image now, prints of it for $10-$20.
That is very cool, that animation. Okay, yeah, I guess absolutely check that out.
We should talk about some tech.
We should talk about some technology news. Let's talk about some Apple news because Apple did something really unconventional this week. They forecast future products and talk specifically about a future product that's not nearly ready to be released. And we're talking about the Mac Pro line. So Apple invited like half a dozen, like 6 exclusive writers, John Gruber included, Mashable, BuzzFeed, Recode, and did a roundtable with Phil Schiller, not Johnny Ive or Tim Cook, but some of the other executives, and really laid out their plan for the prosumer line for Mac products, not iOS, but Mac OS.
So just on the high end.
Just in the high end. And what they said specifically was, one, the Mac Pro, which is getting a spec update, the trash can design Mac Pro, finally getting a spec update this year, today. It'll be faster. You can get the 6-core, 8-core Xeon, dual GPUs from AMD. But that design is going to be retired, and they will have a newly, completely re-architected Mac Pro that will be out not this year, sometime after this year. People are speculating 2018.
The context for this is that Mac has not been updated in like 1,000 days.
Yes, the Mac Pro line.
Right.
Yeah. And while Mac Pro represents a very small percentage of total Mac and Apple users, and even probably less on the bottom line, it from the pro community's perspective, it's really felt like Apple has really turned their back on the professional community.
Mm-hmm. Well, the Macs in general aren't even their biggest product right now. It's all
in Macintosh. You're right. The Mac Pros aren't their biggest Mac OS product.
I mean Mac in general. Like
yeah, of course.
iPhones
all
represent
iOS.
the majority
Yes,
of their business.
Mac is it's growing. Mac is absolutely growing, but still very small. But anyone who's a video editor or a graphics designer who needs more than just what an iMac or a MacBook Pro can offer, the Mac Pro was the only option on for Mac OS, and it has been stagnant. The Mac Pro that you could buy 2 months ago had the same hardware as the Mac Pro you would buy a year ago, and it just wasn't cutting it. So Apple never said that they made a mistake with the Mac Pro design, the trash can design, and honestly, I like that design aesthetically.
Yeah.
But they what they did acknowledge is that the trends that they expect in software and computing didn't move their way. It was a mistake. Like, they designed the Mac Pro to not be upgradable. They designed it for a multi-GPU architecture, has 2 graphics cards. But a lot of these professional programs really move less toward parallel processing or more towards single heavy GPU. They said this explicitly. And they said the type of applications that you couldn't do on an iMac that you would need something like a Mac Pro to do, or a high-end PC, honestly, VR specifically. VR and high-end graphics work at high resolutions. And they're going to have a newly architectured system that's going to be upgradable and expandable, with 2 things they said, in post-2017. It won't be out this year.
Those are words that you don't associate to Apple.
Exactly.
No.
Yeah. It's very peculiar, one, that they are going this direction, and it's, I think, from a Mac Pro perspective, user, that's a good direction to go in, but it's peculiar that they did this briefing at all and telegraphed this to build this reassurance. Like, they must have gotten to a point where they felt like any more radio silence, which has been Apple's MO, radio silence until new products release, would have really hurt them this year.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if this is a new age of transparency for Apple, or if this was just the Mac line, the Mac Pro line had gotten so bad that they really need to nip it in the bud.
Or they would, the fact that they weren't going to release anything this year would have been too much.
Too much and then the user base would have fallen off a cliff. But they also said that the iMac line would be updated this year to meet a lot of those needs of professionals, video editors.
Yeah, and they said a lot of the pros have gone to the MacBook Pro anyway.
You know, the definition of pro is so wide-ranging.
It doesn't mean anything.
It doesn't mean anything. If you are an audio engineer, I think a MacBook Pro is going to be sufficient. If you're a video editor, there's a lot that iMac can offer that's also going to be sufficient. But for a lot of the stuff we do and a lot of stuff that a lot of professionals do, the Mac Pro itself, that garbage bin, the fact that you can't has no USB-C, you can't plug in a 5K display into it, it's just not sufficient. And I know it's not a big moneymaker for Apple, but it really is it's the argument that people made 15 years ago that Apple was the best hardware and software for creative professionals. Mm-hmm. You can't make that argument today.
Are they going to put in stuff that we've wanted in the lower level market, like a touchscreen?
They said the iMac this year would not have a touchscreen.
Oh, they said that?
I think it was confirmed, the iMac. Let me
here it is. It says Schiller says no
touchscreen.
No touchscreen.
Yeah, exactly. That's a big deal. I thought they would do it this year.
You know, Our family iMac, which is the computer that the kids all use, is 6 years old, and it's so slow, and because we all have our own user accounts on it, and it's just I don't think it was built for that. So I've been thinking it'd be time to upgrade, but this is a long wait. I've been thinking about going PC, and I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of other people are thinking the same thing.
Yeah, maybe that's the cynical view, is they looked at business trends and said, "Uh-oh."
Well, Apple's never been about business, the B2B market. It's
No. I'm just saying sales trends and stuff, and said, "Oh, we're
on the
like-
software side,
yeah.
maybe on the licensing and software side. Like they know what's being sold through the Mac, the App Store.
It's all about that whole their whole infrastructure. You buy into FaceTime and iChat or iMessage, and you want to be you want all of your stuff to be compatible with that, cloud sharing and. Yeah, I don't know. So that's the problem. Like if I were to go PC, that would be one step towards going Android.
I mean, it's really ripe for Microsoft to do something interesting with their Surface line, with with their desktop, with their all-in-one, even with their laptops, to take advantage of this and to build better developer relations. I mean, if you're an Adobe or an Autodesk and you feel like your customers are not happy with Apple hardware, where are you going to spend the money on developing the software? Yeah, a lot of users are using MacBook Pros and iMacs for stuff, but if Microsoft gives you enough incentive to do better support for the PC side and put those features in, that's a really good opportunity for them. Like I'm very happy doing all my Adobe work on PC.
Jeremy, are you feeling okay? I heard you say something about switching to Android.
Yeah,
Are you okay?
When I said that, I
Are you
realized
feeling all right?
I realized I didn't say Microsoft Phone. It's like I wouldn't do that. That's a little crazy.
Okay, what was that movie recently where Microsoft Phone was so prominent? Big budget film. Oh, what movies I watched recently? It wasn't Kong. Ugh.
I gotta tell you, I have a real bad taste in my mouth for Android due to my television.
Oh, God. I almost hit another car when you're like, I have to reboot my TV.
Yeah,
I was like, what is that nonsense?
every 2 days.
I thought about calling you up as soon as I got back into town, coming over, just ripping your TV out of the wall and throwing it out the window. That is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard.
I've felt that. I've felt that many times, and I think that problem's just gonna get worse. I mean, every TV is smart these days.
All right, so other big technology news. This one less consumer oriented, but it looks like the AOL, Verizon, the Yahoo combination merger is going to happen, and they have a new name.
They named their
the
company off of a authorization standard, right?
Yeah.
That's what I saw. It was
OAuth,
like
yeah.
OAuth, right?
Yep. Oath, a Verizon company.
That is one of the worst names I've ever heard for a technology company.
Okay.
There we go.
Yeah.
We're done with that.
That's the news there. We got a new Microsoft Xbox tech specs announced. Is that right?
Yeah, well, they will be today if you release this podcast on time.
So this is Project Scorpio.
That's right.
The anticipated mid-generation update to Xbox One, completely backward compatible. Will have some VR functionality unannounced yet.
That's the exciting part.
That is exciting. And Microsoft has telegraphed that performance-wise, it's supposed to be really cutting above anything out there on the console side.
Yeah.
Even what's in the PS4 Pro. I mean, you already had the Xbox One S, which had your 4K support, but this is going to be hugely a big jump. So,
What do you want?
I mean, it's not going to be a whole new console, right? It's just it's an improved Xbox One.
I expect a redesign.
Yeah, I mean, is it the Xbox One S? I mean, is it the same line, or is it a whole new thing?
I think it replaces Xbox One. So it's the S, which is your entry level, and then your Scorpio, which is your high end level. Something that I think that the interesting thing is that they're building toward a model where consumers, console owners, are going to be okay paying that. Remember how much PS3s cost at launch? Like $600, $500. We're going back to that high price point. You had the big backlash of how expensive consoles were, and when PS4 launched and Wii U launched, it was back to the $300, $400 launch price points. Now you have an excuse to upsell a gamer to buy a high-end console with
Thanks VR.
Exactly. Well, with throwing 6 teraflops at them and 4K HDR rendering, all crazy effects, and hopefully, like you said, VR being an add-on.
I wonder if HDR is going to be a selling point. because it looks phenomenal when it is on HDR TV.
I bet it will. I bet it will be. Yep. I don't know. It's cool. I don't have an Xbox One though, so I'm not anxious to upgrade or add another thing to my TV.
The VR aspect too is going to be interesting,
Mm-hmm.
and I know Sony has talked publicly about how many PSVRs they've sold, and how use in PSVR jumped when Resident Evil
Close to 1 million units.
right. I'm sure Microsoft is looking at that with a lot of envy, but I think everyone's gonna be very cautious because excitement around VR in the console space really doesn't seem to be grabbing hold, at least in a mainstream way. I don't hear about all those ads that came out. You don't see them anymore. You don't see people talk. You don't see them advertising in Best Buy about all these VR for console. It still feels very much like a PC and mobile thing.
Yeah, but if Microsoft does something interesting with it, that could change. I mean, VR is going to take off eventually, and it's
Yeah.
going to take these kind of tech iterations to make that happen.
Well, it's
I
gonna be
mean,
a question of who they're gonna partner with,
I-
or do it themselves.
I would like to see what they do with the tech. I'm assuming it's not just a nice headset with motion controllers. I'm assuming the thing that would make it really great that they have is their Connect system, and they could do some sort of body tracking that would put your whole,
right,
your whole
right.
self into VR.
Yeah.
Do you think they can revive that after how much Kinect was panned?
Well, I don't, like it goes like with the Move, like a
Yeah.
PSVR repurposed the Move stuff. We shall see. Kinect had great potential.
We have a couple last tech stories before we go on. How do you watch your Thursday night football?
With the TV off?
You reboot your TV to watch Thursday night football. It was streaming on Twitter last year, which was a horrible user experience to watch anything on Twitter, by the way. The only place it worked was on mobile, and even that wasn't that great. But Amazon outbid them, and they'll be streaming 10 NFL games this year.
Are they the British games? Are they ones played in London? Are they the
No,
only
no,
ones
those are on
people
Sundays.
care about?
No, these games tend to be awful because the players don't have as much rest, and it's well documented that the quality of play is less on a Thursday night. Going back to something that's been said long on this is like the reason Amazon Video works is people already have Prime. And I'm wondering how that translates now to sports, which is one of those frontiers in cord cutting and streaming services that everyone is going after this year. Like with the YouTube TV or whatever, Google TV having ESPN part of its package. I'm really curious if Amazon has an uptick. And it just wasn't a great experience last year because football looks good on big TVs. It doesn't look good on mobile because you lose something in it. So I'm wondering if streaming via Amazon, which can go to televisions, is going to make a difference. You're a Spotify user?
I am.
Yeah?
I am.
So you have Spotify Premium. You've had it for a long time, right?
Long time since they first offered it.
You're
yeah.
finally going to get some
Exclusive?
benefits
Oh.
beyond no ads. You're going to actually get access to certain artists that you can't get on Spotify
I think
normal.
this is the way it has to go for everybody. If the industry's going to continue to make money.
So how does this work?
Premier artists make money.
Right.
So it seems like a few artists are going to have their releases exclusively on Spotify Premium, including Kanye is the first one they've put up there. I think to me, this sounds like what Tidal was trying to be, except like the higher bitrate kind of stuff. Like there's exclusivity in the space. I don't know if this is going to incentivize people to buy Spotify Premium. I think the New York Times thing was a better bundle.
Yeah, exactly. I
Then
love the New York
exclusive.
Times thing because you feel like you're getting more value.
You're
out
getting
of
a
it.
ton of value on this. Like, are you going to join Spotify Premium just to listen to one artist?
In the alternatives, people listen on YouTube. They listen on all the back channels. I just don't feel like it's going to be incentive. And honestly, I'm a little disconnected from how the kids these days get their new music. But I mean, I think from a business side, it makes a lot of sense on paper. And the way it rolls out, I'm curious to see whether it actually has any effect.
So will this music be exclusive to Spotify, or will the other services host it too?
It didn't sound like it. It sounds like that the music will be exclusive on Spotify.
Okay.
On Spotify Premium.
Got it.
I mean, thinking back in the old days, when there was satellite radio versus terrestrial radio, if Sirius XM had a 2-week exclusive for an album, a highly anticipated album, would people care? Would it be that big of a thing?
No.
No, I think people just wait. Just wait the 2 weeks.
Yeah. Do you think people are that? Do you think that the exclusive digital distribution of Rogue One for what was it, 2 weeks? Do you think that encouraged more digital purchases?
No, there's too many options out there.
You don't think so?
Yeah.
I don't think that's enough of a market at the end of the day, even with Star Wars being a giant market. One last thing in tech news before we move on. We have to enter Elon's shower to visit how things are going.
So grody and heady in here.
I bet he has a nice shower.
Well, let's talk about the most impressive thing first of all. Apparently, he can use used equipment and still get the same performance out of it. We didn't talk about the SpaceX launching one of their
I was going to say
rockets.
that for science.
We had
Okay,
enough
this is a big
science
deal.
stuff.
All
This is
right.
a huge deal. They launched one of the rockets that was already sent to space and landed on a barge. They sent it up again, landed on a barge.
This is the first time a rocket of that capacity has been reused.
Yeah,
It's a
it's
big
monumental.
it's an enormous cost savings.
Yeah, monumental. Just kudos. There's nothing else to say except wow, what an accomplishment.
So is this rocket going to be the one that's in a museum, or is
No, there's already one that got sent to the museum. This was the second or third one that
Okay.
they landed on a barge. Look at how I'm talking about this.
yeah,
It's
Yeah.
the second or third one.
They've landed on a
barge.
robot landed on a robot?
The cost savings are, in the tens of millions of dollars per launch now. So this is a huge step forward in terms of everything else.
So
Still, Delta Heavy is the bigger item to me
yes.
on the agenda for this year.
But this launch, it did have a payload. They launched something into space. So there was some trust, there was some faith that this would actually work.
Yeah.
And did they give those guys a discount, given that there was so much of a cost savings?
You would have asked for a discount? Would you have? If you're a satellite maker, be like, this is a used rocket.
I mean, that's the whole point, isn't
Elon puts on his used car salesman hat.
it? Isn't that why SpaceX is doing this? So that they can save
not about the
cost
mileage.
and pass that on to the customer?
I don't know how rocket sales work. Imagine not. Imagine not.
Bet it had a clear code.
In other Elon news, Tesla sales skyrocketing. 25,000 vehicles in the first quarter.
Oh, yeah, and they're making just as many, what are they, X's as they are S's.
Yeah, and, this is all pre-Model 3 whatever next year.
None of it matters until they can deliver a Model 3.
Your Model 3.
No, I think it does.
That's yes.
I think it does. I think it does from the sense that the how rapid the replacement of gasoline vehicles to electric only is taking hold. People thought this would be like a 10-year cycle. We might be ahead of that curve.
Well, we live in California.
Yeah, that's right.
I will say, as you know, I have an electric car. I have a Chevy Bolt, and I went to Target the other day, and I used their free charging station in the parking lot. And I didn't even know they had a free charging station in the parking lot. And it feels like you're cheating at life. It's a wonderful thing.
But you had to go to Target.
I had to go to Target to get the Blu-ray. So, it cost me nothing to go to Target.
I was on my road trip. I saw a bunch of the Tesla superchargers out there.
Yeah.
Weirdest one I saw was I was in Redwood National Park near their headquarters in Crescent City. There were 6 Tesla superchargers just in the parking lot of a national park headquarter office.
Wow.
That is a weird location for
Were there
them.
cars charged?
There's one out of 6.
How about that?
Last bit of Tesla news. They've been struggling with these regulations about direct sales of Teslas in certain states where you have to go through dealers. I mean, these kind of crooked, I'll straight up call it what it is, crooked rules that, basically hold up dealerships. And they got rebuffed in Utah that they cannot do direct sales. So I wonder if how much of that fight is going to hurt their sales. I imagine not much. I think if you want a Tesla, you'll find a way to get a Tesla. But
It just seems one state after another is having the same problem. And
I eventually think this will collapse. under its own weight.
Yeah.
Also, when we're talking about TV, going back to TV, if you live in one of these 5 areas in the country, San Francisco Bay Area, Philadelphia, Chicago, New York, or LA, YouTube TV, the $35 a month a la carte service built into YouTube, is launching. There are reviews out about it. People are loving
When is it launching?
You can sign up for it. Yeah,
Right now?
Yes, it's.
I won't be talking to you for a little bit.
People are loving the DVR functionality of it, and it sounds like they invested heavily in their partnerships. You get your Disney, ESPN, NBC, CBS, Fox, AMC. There are few omissions there, especially in the TNT, the Turner networks. But $35 a month, and you're just using the data that you pay for. It could be a good deal. It's something that we'll be testing. All right, is that what you're swapping into, Kishore?
No.
Oh, interesting. Oh, I don't know if you should take that call. You might need to hold off on that.
You tell me.
And is that it for tech news?
I think that's it.
Yep.
All right.
You got
All
something
right.
to say?
Yes, absolutely. Let me sneeze quickly.
I thought you don't get sick.
It's weird.
It's weird.
Just flushing through the fluids.
Robots leaking fluids.
Yeah. And thank you again to Squarespace for sponsoring this week's episode of This Is Only a Test. Whatever your big idea is, next big idea is, count on Squarespace to help you create an eye-catching online platform that brings it to life. Whether you need, again, a portfolio to showcase your work, a store to sell your products and services, or a blog to share your ideas, Squarespace gives you everything you need to look like an expert right from the start. You even get a unique domain, which strengthens your brand and making it easier to find visitors to find you. Plus, with Squarespace award-winning templates, creating a beautiful website is simple and an intuitive process. You can arrange the content, just drag and drop with a click of the mouse, no programming, nothing to install, nothing to patch ever, and they have 24/7 customer support that can help you with any problem. Think of it as your very own IT department. So again, to make your next move, start your free trial at Squarespace today. Enter the offer code TEST, TEST, to get 10% off your first purchase. Again, that's TEST. And thank Squarespace for sponsoring This Is Only a Test.
It's time for a moment of science.
I gotta fix this audio. You guys hear that? It's overmodulated. But none of the levels are peaking. I can't see where it's happening.
Oh.
Was that English? I didn't understand a word of that.
You don't hear that?
No, I do hear it.
All right.
It was a little static.
I figured out.
It's wonderful to hear that music again. I'm going to start on a downer note, but finish up. There's long been an opioid epidemic in this country, and it's really ravaged a number of communities. I think you're going to see this come to a head in some public places like the NFL, which are using painkillers, and a number of their players are addicted. There's a couple studies that came out that are really interesting that show the cascade of effects that are happening with opioids. So you have to get opioids legally. You have to have them prescribed by a doctor. What they found is a lot of hospital systems incentivize patient satisfaction, as one of their primary indicators. One of the chief ways that patient satisfaction is increased is if they walk away from a doctor's visit with a prescription in their hand. And there's a really great Freakonomics episode where they explore this behavior, this economic behavior, where doctors are overprescribing opioids, partially to create higher patient satisfaction.
What?
Here's where it starts to cascade. There's another study that came out this week that talked about how long you have to be on certain opioids to essentially how that predicts your addiction to them. And if you're prescribed opioids, how long do you think a typical prescription would take for you to become addicted in terms of
regular use?
Regular use, yeah. I can give you the percentages in the show notes, but it's not important here. How long?
6 months.
6 months. Jeremy?
Oh, gosh. I was going to say much less than that. I was going to say 3-4 weeks.
10 days. So there's a lot of people walk away with opioid prescriptions for just 1 or 3 days, especially if they have outpatient surgery, but 10 days is a very small amount for you to
That's
become
scary.
regularly addicted
Holy smokes.
to these classifications. So you can start to see a cascade effect now of things. And then there's another study, which I won't go into in depth, that talks about the ramifications of this addiction over a long period of time in terms of your overall health.
I took psychopharmacology in college, so I took like a whole semester of it. So I know a lot about this. I'm basically a doctor. And I can tell you that opiates are one of the few chemicals that cause a true physical addiction. And that being addicted to an opioid is really bad business.
I have so many questions. Mostly, why did you take a psychopharmacology class in college?
I don't know. It was available. It was interesting. Drugs are interesting.
Cool.
Effects of drugs on people are interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Also, Trainspotting 2 is out, but I haven't seen it yet. But it's relevant.
I don't think I'm going to see that. I think Trainspotting was enough. All right. You ready for the compostable human heart?
Yes.
So there's been this search for how we can create artificial hearts regrown with human tissue inside of them. Like, how can we take human stem cells, implant them in something, grow them into heart? We've known for a while that we've been able to take stem cells, convert them into heart cells, and have them grow in a lab dish. For a while now, scientists have been searching for different architectures they can implant that heart tissue, that new sort of stem cell heart tissue in for it to grow an entire heart. A lot of it has been like, we'll take an old heart and pull out all the structure. We'll decellularize it. Well, they did so with spinach recently. They took you look at the back of spinach and it has all of those like tendrils of cellulose that go throughout it that look like sort of vein structure. So they essentially took away all the plant structure except the cellulose, and it actually implanted human tissue on it and then pumped fluid in it. And I'll put the video up. So to show that this structure, they're able to deliver fluids through the plant.
The veins of a plant.
Mm-hmm.
And make it look like blood through the veins of a heart.
It doesn't quite look like blood because they didn't grow enough tissue on it. It's still a little translucent. But it's really fascinating. And then you can just throw out your heart in the compost when you're done.
Whoa.
This is mad scientist stuff.
Oh, this is so much fun to be back because I had all these like fun things I've wanted to talk about for a while. A couple more.
I like the headline for this one.
Do you like the smell after a rain, especially when it hasn't rained in a while?
You mean
you know
Breath
that
of the
smell?
Wild?
The breath of the wild. Is that what the whole point of that Zelda game is? You're constantly just out there
inhaling.
smelling that fresh
Rains a lot.
scent.
Yeah.
It does rain a lot.
But you know what I'm talking about, that scent that comes into the air.
Oh, it's very romantic.
The scent is actually the remnants of soil bacteria that's being aerosolized
Stop
by
ruining things for me.
raindrops. It's very romantic. There's an incredible a study that was done showing high-speed effects of what it looks like when rain hits surfaces. And you would think raindrop hits a surface, sort of droplet kind of effect. It swishes out. Under high-speed conditions, what they're able to show is oftentimes air bubbles get trapped as the rain is pushing down. And it almost becomes like carbonated with bubbles. And as it hits, those bubbles sort of come back to the surface and explode
Aerosol.
like a fizzy drink and shoot stuff everywhere. And that's where the smell comes from, is like it'll hit these bacteria and it'll release a chemical compound called geosmin. I mispronounced that. What's interesting is the reason this study was done is there is a scientist in that was looking at the uptick of a really rare lung infection caused by a soil-dwelling bacteria in Southeast Asia and Northern Australia. And they've linked it to rain.
Wow.
The raindrops are hitting this bacteria that's on the soil,
And
aerosolizing them, and people are breathing it in and generating a lung infection. That's right. Even the fresh scent after a rain can kill you.
The Breath of the Wild is dangerous. Deadly.
What's even better is I found a fragrance store that has bottled and sells a synthetic version of that chemical as a what do you call it?
Perfume.
Like perfume.
What's it called?
Thunderstorm.
I love it.
And I have one last question for Jeremy. Jeremy, what color is Saturn?
Okay. All right.
This isn't one of those dirty tricks that Norm played earlier. I mean, it is, but it isn't.
Gosh, I wanted to say blue.
At least the pole is blue.
Okay.
Saturn is sort of yellowish.
Yeah.
It has always had that. There's a spot on the North Pole that is actually appearing blue. Like Cassini is in this which is a probe that we sent to study Saturn, is in its sort of death spiral. It's going to crash and end its life. And as we're getting some of the final images back, a space enthusiast took the raw images that are posted on NASA's site and looked at them in depth. And there's this area on the pole where there's some essentially clearing in the cloud sky. It's sort of been called like the equivalent of an ozone hole in Saturn's atmosphere. And that clearing has led to something called Rayleigh scattering, where light scatters in a different way. And that clearing has created a small blue dot at the top North Pole of Saturn.
How about that?
It's really beautiful. I'll post the pictures on there. But what I think the most amazing story is some guy who's just a space enthusiast went and took the raw image files that NASA posts because it's public domain and worked on them and showed that this is the effect. He didn't colorize them. He just processed them. It was kind of great. Norm, if you had any spare time,
Yeah,
that could be you.
absolutely. And this hole is, when you say small, it's pretty
It's
big.
giant.
Yeah, it's 1,000
We're
miles.
talking about Saturn.
Yes. Yeah.
But it's still small relative to the rest of Saturn.
Got it.
And that's your catch-up on A Moment of Science.
That was pretty good.
The VR Minute. Virtual reality this week.
All right. So last week we recorded the podcast literally an hour before this news dropped. But we're going to catch up on it right now. Palmer Luckey is no longer an Oculus/Facebook employee.
Yep.
He has left the company. He's out.
No more information than that.
That's it.
Lots of speculation, but that's all the actual information.
Yes. Coincidentally, maybe not coincidentally, the timing for his departure was almost 3 years to the day that he started, that the acquisition happened. So some speculation is that the 3-year contract was up. There had been previous word from some people that he had found a new role in Oculus Facebook. So, but no one had exactly said what it was going to be. But long story short, he is no longer part of the company that he founded. Amid much controversy last year about his involvement in several online campaigns, and I don't think necessarily the business needs what he has to offer. He definitely did offer a great bunch in terms of the early awareness of consumer VR, this resurgence. But Facebook and Oculus is going forward without him.
Well, yeah, I was surprised. I mean, that was nice. There's a lot of vitriol surrounding his involvement with the posting campaigns last year. But after he left Oculus, after it was announced that he was gone, there was quite a lot of, thanks and praise for him on Reddit this past week, and I think deservedly so. Without him, we probably would not be experiencing the VR resurgence that we are right now.
Yeah,
and he deserves every bit of money and fame that he got from launching Oculus, and I hope that he does stay in the space. And and does more. I can't wait to see what he's up to.
Are you surprised at all? I mean, after he didn't show to Oculus Connect and the weird
or
kind of
CES,
press release,
GDC,
yeah,
yeah,
this seemed like one of the more natural conclusions.
Yeah, I'm not that surprised at all, and I think we've all understood that what Facebook has invested in Oculus in terms of growing a team is that it's much bigger organization than the plucky startup that was founded several years ago, and no one is not expendable.
I guess I'm both sad at the departure because he represented that sort of exuberance over VR. Like, even though he was derided for that time cover, that kind of is how it feels when you're in VR for the first few times. And even when you play amazing games, it's just, and he was such a great spokesman for that feeling. But now we're in like this more corporate professional time.
Well, and there are many, many more advocates of VR all over the place. Enthusiasts, developers, hardware makers, everywhere. I mean, it really has grown beyond that. I don't think media needs, and this is the media's fault, to want to pinpoint one single person to be the champion of a technology or a platform. It's really interesting that I'm sure 10 years, 20 years down the line, we'll look back and there will be retrospectives telling the story of the good old days, which we're in right now. And it's really cool that we are, these things happen with the advent of internet, with every major technology. There were personal stories and dramas that unfolded. And this is just another instance of that.
Didn't he already land somewhere?
Is that true?
Yeah, I thought he was already consulting with another company. I'll have to find it later. But I can't imagine, given his pedigree, that he'll be
right. I'm sure
unemployed for long.
He had plenty of ideas that he didn't get to properly fulfill with his tenure there, and I'm sure that he was privy to a lot of interesting insight. Maybe not IP that he can take with him, but insight that would make his contributions valuable in another capacity. On the Vive sides, we have it's the 1 year. Is this really
Happy birthday.
happy birthday 1 year for the release of the Vive? Really?
Today, right? Well,
yeah.
Well,
Wednesday.
when the day we're recording it.
To commemorate it, HTC is doing a $100 price drop today, which by the time this
Doesn't
podcast
help
is out,
anyone listening
maybe
to
not
this
help.
today.
So hopefully, we'd love to hear if maybe we took advantage of it. Does that $100 price drop actually mean anything to you? Were you waiting for this? I mean, honestly, if you're waiting to buy a Vive and there's a $100 price drop, spend that money on the new deluxe audio headset. when that
Yeah,
comes
you
out.
know, that's the thing. After seeing the reviews, after talking to all these people who have tried out the head strap and stuff, like I wouldn't be investing in a Vive now because that just is massive. The ergonomic improvement is so big.
Yeah, and that's gonna be $100. So it's basically, I mean, it tells me that they're not gonna bundle that headset, deluxe audio headset, with the Vive anytime soon.
I'm kind of surprised that the Vive, being a year old, isn't dropping the price permanently. You know, you would expect to see consumer products come down in price after a certain amount of time. Rift has done it. Obviously, they have a little more money behind it that they can afford to throw, but
their argument is that they were able to do the price drop because of efficiencies in their supply chain and their new operating officer. But
which has been in production for less time than the Vive.
right, I'm skeptical. I'm curious whether that's actually the case or whether Facebook is actually just taking a bigger hit to try to push VR into the mass market.
I think you're right.
Where on the Vive side, the margins are so low, or the expectations were that they have to do it and make a profit on the hardware.
They can't afford the margins that
That's right.
Oculus has used. No, I think you're right. But still, assuming that they have the margins that they need, it has been a year. Eventually, consumer electronics come down in price. That will happen. Eventually, I'm surprised it's not now. I played a Serious Sam last night. Have you played those? Serious Sam was released, the first encounter and the second encounter.
Haven't played the second encounter.
Re-released. Like, how old are these games now? They've got to be, what? They've got to be like 15 years old.
The original series.
Yeah, the original.
Oh, yeah.
So they were re-released in HD years ago, and then they re-released. Now they've just released them for VR. I played the first encounter for a little bit last night. It didn't grab me, although the reviews are much better than I felt about it. So maybe it's your cup of tea. There's a teleporting mechanic. It's a first-person shooter, as you probably already know. But there's a teleporting mechanic optionally, and then you can also sort of warp, but it's like a quick warp through space. And there's a saw, which is a fun weapon to use, shooting guys. It's typical Serious Sam. It didn't feel like it was made for VR. And I feel like with so many games like Robo Recall and what's that bullet time game that you like so much?
Super Hot?
Yeah, Super Hot. Games that are really unspoken, made for VR from the ground up. I feel like with so many of these wonderful experiences now, even with Rock Band VR,
Yeah.
I feel like that these ports of classic games, they don't work as well for me.
Well,
Have you tried Rock Band?
Oh,
You
we
don't
reviewed
have-
it last week. Jeremy
I didn't watch it.
Loves
Yeah, you
it.
should watch Projections.
It convinced me to buy a guitar, and mine's
Did you?
arriving today.
Oh,
I think I'm
excellent.
gonna set that up.
Which one?
Wow.
The Xbox wireless one.
Very cool.
Really?
Yeah.
No, you should
Really?
watch the Projections.
I will
know.
watch
I was
Projections.
just as skeptical,
segment
and
3.
Jeremy was so enthusiastic. It sold me on it.
I feel like it's an important game.
Wow.
I know. Yeah. A couple more things. Batman VR, the Arkham VR experience, which was exclusive to PSVR, is going to make its way to the HTC Vive and the Oculus Store this month. So it was a timed exclusive, as some of these things are, like the Resident Evil, timed exclusive for a year. So if you've been waiting for that, that's going to come out. I don't know if the pricing, if they're going to keep that the same. It was $20. Honestly, we had played it. This month there will be Wilson's Heart and Batman Arkham VR, and they feel like similar type of puzzle-solving, adventure, story-driven games.
Quite different. I mean,
but one's in the Batman universe.
That's true. But beyond that, like every single Batman theme seems like a different experiment in VR.
Yes, yeah.
But they both do have that kind of linear. You're probably going to play it once.
Yeah.
I played the demo at Comic-Con. I'm definitely gonna get it when it comes out.
But Wilson's Heart's much longer.
Right. That's supposed to be 8 hours.
Yeah.
8 hours.
Yeah. Long form.
Wow.
I know. Yeah. And then there's a video that came out last year that Unreal put out, and I missed this completely, but I thought it was super cool.
I thought we talked about this.
Did we
on
talk
this
about this? The Frame
podcast.
Store? The Frame Store demo. So Frame Store is a VFX house, and they use Unreal Engine to do this field trip to Mars, where they set up screens in a school bus, and
It's unbelievable.
In the
It's-
windows?
in
Yeah.
the windows.
I love this.
They're transparent. Like they use a special glass
Yeah.
that is transparent, so it looks like they're in a real school bus until they flip the switch.
Right. Yeah. And then they drove the school bus, and it's all tracked. So it's like they took the kids on a field trip to Mars, and the screens are touchscreens, so kids have overlay info that they can touch on the screen and get information about the terrain. But what a wonderful, awesome demonstration of VR.
It's unbelievable. It's like tied into the engine, so like
Dude, so how fast you go actually affects
Yeah.
how fast the scenery goes by?
Exactly. And so they had to do all this special hardware on board, like their
Yeah.
server racks basically on board to do, all this processing. It's just an amazing outfit they created.
great.
I remember seeing this for the first time. Yeah. So you'll see as you go through the video, they actually had to strap a laser sensor on the outside of the bus to track the ground that would give it a sense of motion that they would use to push the VR footage forward.
Talk about a magic school bus.
Seriously, I love everything about this. Is this something that's going to tour the country or anything like that? Do you know?
I
I
don't
don't
know.
think so.
This was in Southern California.
Oh, so expensive. But man,
Hold
that's
on.
cool.
This fall. So last fall, I guess it did tour more of LA, the LA area. And
That's a wicked.
You think they
I
found
would
Matt
love-
Damon in there?
No,
Did they like pepper in Mark Watney? in there?
Wah. I hope they use it for more experiences. More, I mean, science and this type of inspirational education is definitely a great tool for it. But
Yeah.
for entertainment, and I mean, it's a really novel case of mixed reality.
That's not VR.
It's
Okay,
mixed
thanks,
reality.
Will.
Yeah,
It's a shame.
yeah.
Wrong segment.
All right. And one last thing. We've been testing the MSI VR backpack, which we'll be reviewing this week on projections. But we got it set up here, so Kishore got to try that if you have some time.
Yeah.
It's very liberating. It actually got me to reopen a lot of programs I hadn't opened in a while: Raw Data, Unseen Diplomacy, and Tilt Brush, and a lot of those have been updated with some new content. So it's always good to go back and try some old things again.
This is a computer in a backpack form factor.
Yeah.
So it's got a nice frame that's plastic, but has some air between it and the computer, so the computer doesn't actually touch you. Has these nice foam straps, and it's well designed. It's it feels like you're carrying around your books.
Yeah, it's not too heavy, ergonomically totally fine. You'll have our full impressions in our review, but that's what we've been testing in VR. But how about what we've actually been testing?
Let me test this mute button.
Testing this week. Hey, what have you guys been testing? All right, a big piece of tech I got in this week, and we'll also see a review later this week, the LG G6 Android phone. So I'm going to talk to each of you differently. First, Kishore, This is Android 7.0. This is a direct competitor to the Google Pixel phone that you have.
I'm going to push Jeremy out of the way to grab it right now.
And also, it is a competitor to the Samsung Galaxy S8, which is also coming out in a couple of weeks, closer to the S8 than the Pixel. And a very, very nice phone, but also very expensive. And the big question is whether it's worth getting, given that the S8, which from all accounts is also fantastic, whether it's worth investing in this, given LG has not had the best track record in updating its OSs and providing support a couple of years down the line. LG G4 famously did not get a lot of updates that people wanted.
Does it look like no button? Is that a button on the button?
It is a button in the back. For the fingerprint, no button in the front. So, Jeremy, the reason you might be interested in this phone is that it telegraphs a trend this year for cell phones, which is reducing the forehead and chin of phones, the bezel, and really pushing the edge-to-edge screens. So Samsung, the Galaxy S8, very similar in terms of increasing the screen, reducing the bezel, and the rumor is that the new iPhone this year also will look similar to this. Andy Rubin, who was the previous head of Android, who left Google, he's working on a secret hardware startup and showed a picture of a phone that has even less bezel, no space on top for camera or microphone.
The S8 supposedly has what they're calling infinity edge.
It just means that you have to the sides are curved no matter what. It's always the edge.
Yeah, so this one doesn't quite go that far.
No, this one the design is more of a standard chamfered edge along the entire side of the phone, very reminiscent of the iPhone and a combination of the iPhone 5 and 6. The form smaller than so in terms of how, like, to give you a sense of how big the screen is, the phone is smaller than the iPhone Plus, but the screen is bigger than the Plus.
No.
Yeah,
yes.
That's cool.
Like that chin is
look at this.
Really
wow.
big difference.
That's pretty cool.
You know, what I'm surprised about with the G6 is that it's thicker than some of the other phones.
Slightly thicker.
Which is not a trend I thought would come back, but maybe we've just reached that point. I mean, Jeremy's talked about that for a while. Like, don't need phones to get any thinner. Is it heavy?
It's not heavy. No. So they went back on their modular design last year, add-ons. It is a very closed system, no replaceable battery, waterproof. And it feels like a good phone. It's still, I think it's better than the OnePlus 3T in terms of a $400 budget phone, but this is a $600, $700 phone.
That's not budget anymore.
No, exactly.
The corners of the screen are curved.
Yes.
I don't know if I've seen that before.
Samsung has the same thing.
Do they?
On the 8.
The 8, S8, you're talking about the four corners.
Yeah.
It's curved. It's not a perfect curve. I don't mind it.
Yeah.
I didn't notice it at all. It kind of looks like when you're doing a curve in Photoshop or something, and you draw your circle to curve your corners, and it's not perfectly like that.
Right.
There was actually, it's almost like wasted space. Like it's like they just added the bezel, curved it around the edge of the LCD or the OLED in this case. And if you don't have a curved screen, you can download an Android app that gives you curved, just blacks out the corners.
Yeah,
but
it is a little bit of lot space. It's not much.
But
look at how cute the pareidolia is on this with the dual lens.
Yeah,
can you see the face?
That's
cute.
cute.
The face. The lenses are the other interesting thing. I think the screen is interesting, and I'll talk about it in the review. They call it 18:9. It's really 2:1 aspect ratio. I'm gonna show you a piece of content here, Jeremy, that might blow your mind.
Okay.
The camera, you have a normal 35 millimeter equivalent. The second camera is not a 50 millimeter equivalent. It's a wide angle lens.
What?
So here is normal. And here, and I'm sorry for people watching the video, this is a wide angle.
I like that.
It's kind of funky.
Great.
And they have a wide angle for the front as well. So you can do photos from the front, from selfie wide angle, which I love.
That's with that camera?
With the front camera.
It's almost fisheye.
It's almost fisheye. That's exactly it. Both the back and the front have a wide angle that's close to fisheye and really close minimum focusing distance, so you can get really up close to things and create like a fisheye effect. You can all be a 90s punk band and make your albums with the fisheye look.
I love that look.
Yeah.
The fingerprint sensor seemed a little high on the back. That's the only thing that felt a little weird.
It is a very tall phone, so the thing I miss from the iPhone from it is the ability. It's still not a one-handed phone. Like you're still going to stretch your thumb to reach the top of it, and they don't have an accessibility mode to to push everything down. That's what I miss right now, getting to the top and the drawer, application drawer. Let me show you this, Jeremy, is Stranger Things in 2:1 aspect ratio, which was what it was shot at.
Oh, so you're not zoomed in or anything. That's
Not zoomed in.
Nice.
You know, I think, didn't you talk about this last week, that you're not really bothered by the fact that you're getting away from 16:9?
Not at all.
Yeah, it looks fine.
Yeah, so there's a lot of 16:9 content, and unfortunately, like watching a movie trailer on YouTube, even like, so 2:1 is not CinemaScope. Like movies are 2.2:1, I believe. A lot of movies. 2:1 is now just getting more popular. Things like Stranger Things. It's all digital, so you can crop to whatever you want. But Netflix, or not Netflix, YouTube, if you watch a widescreen movie trailer on YouTube, the black bars are hard encoded in the top and bottom. And there's no ability here to zoom in and just crop out the top black and bars.
Because it's a part of the video.
Because it's part of the video.
Yeah.
And then instead you get black bars on left and right and top and bottom.
But if you're watching Letterboxd from a streaming service, it'll look better on your phone, but how many people are doing that?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You want anamorphic content, basically, on this. So we'll have more on that on the site later, but I think that does it this week for This Is Only a Test.
What? Wait, you had an announcement about
Verve
Premium this week.
I did.
On the site.
Yeah, so for our tested community members, first of all, thank you for continuing to support us, and thank you for your patience as we ramp up some of our content. We talked about some of this, the new shows that we've been doing on the site, Bits to Atoms that Jeremy and Sean created, This Old Effect Shop with Frank. It might work with Simone and Kishore, the science show that we're developing that we went to CERN for. You'll see a lot more of that on the site, but a lot of this is made possible by a partnership we've made with a company called Verve and Elation. They make Crunchyroll. They have an app on iOS and Android, on Chromecast and Xbox and PS4, and you can watch it on the web. But it's another way for you to watch our premium content on mobile devices. It's currently US only, so it's only for you guys out there in the States. But please check it out, download the app, sign up. You get a 7-day free trial for that.
It doesn't change how, if you're a premium member now, you can still watch on the tested site. It doesn't change anything.
Nothing changes there. It's just another way for you to watch our stuff, and they make all these new shows possible. And
I've been testing something.
Yeah. Oh, what have you been testing?
I've been testing a software program called Game Maker Studio 2. Now, this is a cool little game making program that is it's for 2D games. It's an entry kind of engine where, if you're familiar with a system called Scratch, which is developed by MIT to help teach kids largely how to program. They don't have to do much typing. It's all about typing in like variables, but all of the syntax and language is handled with this drag and drop interface. So you don't get hung up with trying to figure out where's a bracket go or how do you spell this word. And it's wonderful, and the kids use it in school, and it's great. So this would be like a step beyond that. And they have the similar drag and drop interface, but it's all geared towards making games, and it's more powerful. And if you want, you can graduate beyond the drag and drop and just type in what is essentially like C code. And it's really, really cool. I recommend if you want to get into game design and you don't have the tool set or the experience, check this out because it's pretty cool. The 2 version of this software just launched a month ago, and especially if you have a kid, that's my motivation.
Yeah, it's accessible to kids.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, as Scratch is, like, this alleviates any of the frustration they may have with the limitations of Scratch. So I would check this out. I'm looking forward. I think my son and I are gonna make a game on this once the Mac version comes out, which should be any time now. And it's quite cool. I'm very, very, very impressed. It's a good interface for making games. And the drag and drop stuff, while it may be limiting, it might feel constraining to programmers, it's highly accessible to non-programmers. And it's a good mix of the two. Check it out.
Alrighty. Once again, thank you guys for listening. We'll be back next week with another episode of This Is Only a Test. A lot of stuff on the site this week. And another reminder that if you haven't watched Joey's Arctic video, go on our YouTube channel and watch that. It's called Tested Arctic, a short film, and you will not regret it. One of the best 17 minutes of your life that you'll have this year. We have an outro this week.
We do. From MVDS.
All right.
Hi there, I didn't see you.
Tested.
tasted like the most intense pea flavor you've ever tasted. Test it.
This is why we don't talk about centrifuges.